Welcome to a new episode of the Biophilia podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Emmanuela Urbani, a health and nutrition practitioner who supports women with endometriosis, heavy periods, and PMS through a nature-first biophysical approach. Emmanuela shares how she reversed endometriosis and severe sleep issues through sunlight, circadian rhythm, and EMF reduction after conventional medical treatments failed. She explains endometriosis as a mitochondrial disorder and offers practical steps for restoring hormone and cycle health through environmental alignment. We also discuss PMS, infertility, cold exposure for women, why most fertility and hormone treatments miss the root cause, and how mindset and environment shape healing. You can find Emmanuela at Circana Health on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. There you can also apply for her group program, Control Your Period, where she guides women through the exact foundations we talked about in this episode: light and circadian rhythm, EMF hygiene, mitochondrial support, and practical daily steps to calm symptoms, balance hormones, and regain quality of life. If you enjoyed this episode, we appreciate a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Share it with someone who may benefit. For questions or to connect with us, write to us on Instagram at benefit_coaching and Lars Kerner 10. Enjoy the episode.
Hello. Wow, there's just a coconut just fell down. Good start of our podcast. Welcome to Coconut Podcasts, Biophilia Podcasts, and welcome Emmanuela. Welcome Lars.
Hello and welcome, Emmanuela.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a guest, Emmanuela. It's her, and we speak today with Emmanuela about biophilia topics. And as you maybe already figured out, that almost everything is possible to see it through the biophilia perspective, which is the perspective of connection through nature. And Emmanuela has also some experience with nature and some interesting health journeys, and we want to go into that today. Actually, Emmanuela and me, we met already here in person in El Salvador because we really trust a lot in nature. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that. I just want to give the word to you, Emmanuela. Please tell us and the audience who you are and what you are doing and how you got there, what you're doing now.
Sure. So my name is Emmanuela. I'm a health and nutrition practitioner. Primarily, I help women who have endometriosis and really bad periods through, understanding nature, getting back in tune with nature, understanding how to use biophysics, and all that fun stuff that you talk about here. Me personally, I used to have endometriosis. I also used to have a ton of other health problems. I was an insomniac. I had melasma, which is like discoloration under your eyes and on your forehead and on your upper lip of like basically spotted colors. And I couldn't lose weight. I had restless legs at night. I had a daughter. I have 2 daughters, but when I had my first and my second one was a baby, she also was an insomniac. She didn't sleep more than 1.5, 2 hours at a time. It would take her 2 to 3 hours to fall asleep, and she would have night terrors at night, stomach aches. She didn't eat until 5 p.m. Like the list, and my own problems around hypoglycemia, blood sugar drops during the day, essentially, where I couldn't go more than 2 hours without eating. I had a lot of problems, and I grew up in an alternative house where we were always kind of trying to think a little bit outside the box from the beginning. And I just had this belief for some reason that I should feel good all the time. And I didn't accept what people told me was normal. Like, this is normal. All this stuff is normal. And I was also not allowed to be around electronics until I was mid-teen. So I read a lot and I wanted to know how to fix myself. So starting from when I was 11 or something, I started reading books on the human body, herbs, alternative medicine, how to try and fix myself. And at first, I didn't understand anything about light or circadian rhythm or your physical environment or EMFs. And I was just trying to manage my symptoms with herbs and with diet. And I went from vegetarian to vegan to Weston A. Price, and then to more, seafood based and ancestral type. And I actually was doing a podcast with a woman who had a program for healing teeth. And I went to snoop her, and she had Dr. Jack Cruz on her podcast. And at this point, I was like halfway through where I'd started managing everything with herbs, and I even used homeopathy and all that. And I was kind of like 30% better. I'd seen tons of naturopaths, more than 5. And I also had paid a lot of money for surgery for endometriosis, because most people have to have surgery for it, when they don't know this stuff. But it only worked for about a year and a half. And then everything started to come back, all my symptoms. And when I listened to the podcast, me being like a reader, having researched my whole life, I even went to life science at university here with one of my jobs because I was trying to figure out how to fix myself. And I thought I'd read everything available on the internet, everything available in books, everything I could find. And when I heard him talk, I was like, I've never heard this before. Why haven't I heard this before? And of course, I was skeptical, because I was all about food. I went from being like vegetarian to vegan to being like thinking that a lot of my results were because I was no longer vegan and vegetarian, which I'm sure was partially true. But I was like, no way this has to do with light. And there's no way that light's more important than food for your health. But the thing is at that point, I had an infant that I was nursing. I had a daughter who didn't sleep for more than 1.5 hours at a time. And I was an insomniac, and I had restless legs. And I was like, I will do anything, anything. I wasn't even thinking about my period problems or my endometriosis. I was trying to fix my kid. I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to focus on fixing my daughter, and we'll see what happens. And I'm a bulldozer. I do everything all at once, all at the same time. So, and I am also a speed reader. So basically in that first week, I had already accumulated like 10 hours of his podcast. I had double checked a lot of the sources that he was referencing. I had started to read his blog, his old blog, jackcruz.com. And I changed everything. I changed all the light bulbs. I started taking my daughter out for sunrise every morning. And I pulled her out of school because it was March break. So I was like, I'll just pull her out of school for like 2 weeks and see what happens. And within a week, she started falling asleep in 15 minutes. Wow. She slept for more than 5 hours at a time. Wow. And I started sleeping better. But as I read more and I started getting into the EMF thing, my restless legs were still there until I started unplugging my modem at night. Mm-hmm. When I would unplug it, no problem whatsoever. And at the beginning, my family wasn't, understanding. So sometimes they would stay up late and forget to unplug the modem. And every time that happened, I knew I would wake up at 2 a.m. with twitching legs. And I would go down to the basement, and sure enough, it wasn't unplugged. I pulled the plug, and literally within minutes, I'm back.
My mom needs to hear this.
Very interesting.
Probably within a month or so, my periods also completely changed. Wow. All of my symptoms disappeared. I lost weight. I wasn't trying to do any of that. I was just trying to keep my kids sleeping and keep me sleeping. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to do anything else. But everything else evaporated. My melasma disappeared. My skin got much better. Everything. And I was like hardcore from the beginning. So sunrise 30 minutes every single day. And I would tan in my tan through bathing suit out on my hot tub. I had a hot tub and the sun would shine right here. So I would tan for an hour every morning before UVB would rise, right? And I moved because I started working as a health coach at that time. So I was working from home. So I moved my office from inside to outside, and I would work the entire day in my bathing suit outside. And when I had clients, I would just put on like a top and I went all the way. I went all the way. And everything changed probably within the biggest change in hormones happened about maybe 4 or 5 months in, when my sex drive changed and my relationship with my husband completely changed. So that took longer than everything else. But I was still living in Canada. All I'd done was change the light bulbs, hardwire my home, watch the sunrise. You know what I mean? I'm still living in a city with, I don't know, 300, 400,000 people. Smart meters are required where I live. You can't remove them or they'll cut electricity to your home. So it wasn't perfect, but it worked.
Wow.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction and for the story of you. And yeah, maybe for our listeners who are maybe not so familiar with endometriosis, can you maybe explain it a bit, what it is? And maybe you can also go a bit deeper into how you experienced it and what symptoms did you experience in that time?
Yeah, so endometriosis is basically when cells that look like the endometrium. So as a woman, you cycle and your body builds and the endometrial layer in your uterus, and then you shed that every month when you have a period. Those endometriosis is when there's cells that look like the endometrium, but they're not, that are growing in other parts of your body. So it has a lot of similarities to cancer in a sense where you have cells that are traveling out of where they're supposed to be and then replicating in other parts of your body. So for everyone that could look different. It could grow around your bowels, around your, like, I even know people where it grows all the way up to your heart. It can connect your fallopian tubes and your ovaries, like it can be like a web all around there. Sometimes it connects your bowels to your tubes. It could be in so many different areas, your bladder, like so many things are possible depending on how bad it is. It's not considered cancer because technically it probably won't kill you, but it's very, very similar in a sense where you have cells that are supposed to be killed via apoptosis by your mitochondria, which are not being killed because you have a mitochondrial disease with endometriosis. And so they're migrating and traveling and growing and replicating, and they produce their own hormones. So often they will have, like people with endometriosis will have inflated levels of estrogen, but it's not because you need to detox estrogen. It's because you have things growing where they shouldn't. Symptoms are variable. Some people don't experience a lot of symptoms and they just have digestive problems, bloating, and infertility. And other people can have not that many. They're called like lesions. So they can have just a few, but a lot of pain. You can have pain outside of your periods, so like when you're ovulating, especially if the lesions are on your tubes and your ovaries. Then when the ovulation process must occur, that can cause a lot of pain. That was the situation for me. And then you can have really bad periods. So they can be like super heavy, lots of cramping, pain. Usually doctors will think about endometriosis if you've tried taking strong painkiller drugs, like not Advil or Tylenol, that's not going to cut it, but something like naproxen or something like that, and it doesn't touch your pain, then they will kind of consider the fact that you have endometriosis potentially. So that's what endometriosis is. For me, I had really, really heavy periods, lots of cramping around periods, and pain at ovulation. After I had my surgery, I had surgery for people who are familiar with the conventional side of endometriosis. I found one of the best surgeons in North America, and I paid $30,000 out of pocket to travel from Canada to the US to have surgery with this guy. He was very good. He removed everything. He was like very holistic minded, very like didn't push hormones on you. A lot of people with endometriosis, they get offered drugs that put them into menopause. But he was not that kind of surgeon. He was a good surgeon. But after a year and a half, everything slowly started coming back a little bit. The pain and ovulation started coming back. The really heavy periods started coming back, where I couldn't leave the house, where there were too many cramps, and things started just coming back. Did I miss a part of your question?
No, that was
Okay.
that was good.
Very
That was
insightful.
a lot. Yeah, so I'm learning a lot. So you said what is also interesting me. There is also the PMS, is premenstrual syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Is this connected somehow, or is it on a scale, or can you bring a connection there, or can you see a link?
Yeah, you don't need to have PMS to have endometriosis. You might have PMS and endometriosis. PMS is basically, so it's not necessarily a too low of progesterone, although that can sometimes cause PMS. It's a breakdown product of progesterone but it's connected to endometriosis symptoms. So, for example, somebody can take bioidentical progesterone, or they can increase progesterone naturally to the point where their levels are good, even by optimal standards and not conventional standards. But because their receptors are not sensitive enough, they can't then break that down and communicate that through, and so they'll still get PMS symptoms. Like, PMS is a huge variety of symptoms, anywhere from mild depression, anxiety, sore boobs, headaches, to being suicidal before your period.
Oh, yeah. Wow. What do you think? You gave a little hint already. What do you think? Why do so many people suffer from endometriosis? Like, almost all my female clients, they have like at least the idea, maybe I have this, or yeah, almost all people I talk to these days, more and more. Why is that?
Well, there's two factors. One, your hormones themselves, your body uses to mitigate stress, and not just not just mental stress, I should say, because that's usually what people think when they think of stress. They're like, oh, my job is stressful. That's never going to stop. Or like, living in the modern world is stressful. But not just that kind of stress, but also physical stress, biological stress. Like, we know now, like from back in the 60s, that just being beside a phone will increase cortisol and stress markers in your body, right? Just being close to people using technology, just being under artificial light increases these factors. And what happens is it shortens the lifespan of your hormones in a few ways. So one, you can end up getting your period earlier as a woman. So you will begin menstruating sooner than you should. And that's connected to the fact that you're speeding up that process with the blue enriched light and the non-native electromagnetic frequencies. And because those same things are spiking blood sugar and increasing sex hormone binding globulin, which is a blood marker. So when that goes up and then your blood sugar goes up, then you end up with problems where you get the period earlier and then you hit perimenopause sooner. So you experience, in essence, ovarian failure sooner. And if you want to Google it or prove it to yourself, all this environmental stressors physically reduce something called zeta potential. And when that gets dropped, then you end up with a shortened, intense hormone life. So you have like a short, early period, I should say, and you have intense hormone symptoms. So like PMS, like sore breasts, like heavy, painful periods, maybe depending on what side of the spectrum your problems are, you could end up with infertility, or maybe you have like a woman mustache or PCOS, something like that. And then you burn quickly. So by the time you're in your like 30s, 40s, already you're experiencing perimenopause.
Yeah, one more follow-up question. You mentioned the mitochondria before, and can you maybe introduce to us how they play a role in all of that?
Yeah. Well, they do a couple of really key things. One is they're responsible for killing off cells that are about to go haywire. So if you have, a cell that's like, I'm going to become endometriosis, your mitochondria's like, no, you're not. And they kill the cell. Pow, cut your head off. You're dead. The other thing is the mitochondria is where hormone production begins. So if you can't have that membrane proper, where the charge is sufficient, where the water is there, where everything's working properly, then you cannot make the hormones. That's the first step in hormone creation. It happens in the mitochondria. And they also control your genetic expression. So we know that, right? Based on tests, they took the outside of the cell, so not the nucleus where that DNA, RNA, the one that everybody talks about is, and they put it in. So this was like a sick cell. So they took the outside, which is where the mitochondria are, and they put it in a cell that was perfectly healthy. And it turned out the nucleus of the cell became damaged, just like the first one. And they also did the opposite experiment where they took a cell that had a healthy cytoplasm, but the nucleus was, sorry, where they took out the unhealthy cell cytoplasm, so the external part where the mitochondria is, and then they put in a healthy ones inside that cell, and it changed the genes in the nucleus, so the genome that everybody says causes something to be genetic, and it made that healthy again.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. You talked about the medical system before, and in terms of surgery and everything, can you maybe compare what is usually done from the medical side and maybe what else you experience and what your clients experience from that perspective, and what is like, yeah, the most horrific thing you can do from our perspective, from the biophilia perspective, or from the perspective, yeah, of biophysics, and what you yeah, consider to do instead of that, like what you recommend people to do.
I mean, the worst thing you can do is nothing. The second
Yeah.
best thing you could do is the wrong thing. Right? The common treatment for endometriosis is very variable depending on what country you live in. So in my country, in Canada, the common treatment is the first thing they do is they try to put you on birth control. But birth control often feeds endometriosis. So for some people, it can disguise symptoms, but the endometriosis will grow faster. Then the other option that they'll usually offer you is menopause-inducing drugs. So they'll basically turn you menopausal and shut down production of everything. Those two would probably be the worst options. Then if you really fight hard, you may be able to, where I live, get surgery. But in my country, we have a public healthcare system. And what that means is doctors are not allowed to specialize. So the doctor that performs your endometriosis surgery is also the doctor that primarily delivers babies. So that begs the question is how skilled are they really in removing it? And because it's public, you cannot demand to know certain things. Like you can't ask for pictures, video of your surgery. They won't give it to you. Unless maybe like you're a surgeon and you have like an inside streak, like, you know what I mean? And they don't tell you whether they're going to cauterize or whether they're going to use like a hot device inside your body to burn the lesions off, or if they're going to cut them off like with a light laser. And whether or not they're going to cut them off with margin, because you have to think like cancer with endometriosis. You don't want to just cut off what's being tested as an endometriosis lesion. You want to cut it off with a margin, because sometimes you cannot pick up cells that are duplicating outside of that area. So they don't tell you these things in my country. In the US, where they have subspecialties, and probably in other countries, I don't know, there are surgeons that only do what's called wide excision endometriosis surgery, which is what I had. So they'll go in with a laser, with a lot of precision, with a lot of care, and they will remove the lesions very carefully. It's not the worst thing to do. And some people might need it. They may be at the point where they need both, right? They need surgery to remove some of them. And then they need to implement all of the strategies around, light, water, and electromagnetism to sustain their results, because results are never sustained unless they put you on a hormone of some kind, right? Birth control, hormone that puts you in menopause after you have your surgery. That's how they sustain results, quote unquote. Otherwise, you're not fixing your mitochondria. So you can remove the lesions, and it's only a matter of time before your body, if it doesn't develop that problem, then you could end up with something else, an autoimmune disease, another kind of autoimmune disease, right? Or whatever, Hashimoto's, whatever it is, right? You could end up with something else.
Yeah, that leads me to the next question. What I also see all the time is like, there's so many Instagram accounts also with, I have ADHD, endometriosis, endometriosis, and whatever, many things all together. Why is that the case?
It's like the domino effect, right? You have one problem, your chances of having another are increased. What that problem is depends on your mitochondrial genetics that your mom passed down to you.
And with all the things like Hashimoto or ADHD, and then people say, yeah, it's finally diagnostic, wow.
It's finally being diagnosed.
Finally diagnosed, exactly. Or it's genetic, and yeah, that's always the same explanation for all these diseases. It's very, very interesting that they, yeah.
I mean,
do you have something to say to this?
There's multiple angles to that.
Yeah.
The genetic portion is, I think, society-wide desire for profit to make sure that you never take responsibility for your own health. So we are telling everybody it's genetic. You're overweight, it's genetic. You have this disease, it's genetic. Why? Because it's genetic. You're not responsible. That means you can't do anything about it. That's the worst thing about not being responsible for something. It's that you have no control. And when you're powerless, then you will do anything that someone tells you to do. But when all of a sudden you realize you have control and it's your fault that you have these problems, for good or worse, when it's your fault or your mom's fault, that means that you can change it. And that brings the power back into your hands.
Yeah, I love it. Very well said. And in the beginning, you said something that maybe for our listeners is very, very, interesting to hear. You said you had endometriosis. And when I scroll through Instagram and I talk with people about it, it's not possible to heal endometriosis or to, you always have it when you have it. What do you say to that?
It's this again has to do with mindset. Do you want to identify with your disease or not? I don't. Now, will I, if I stop watching the sunrise, which I lost someone close to me and I was grieving, and for a time I was delinquent. I started eating at night and sleeping in the morning. I stopped doing cold baths and hid in my room, and my symptoms started peeking their ugly heads back on. But then I realized what I was doing, and I got back to all the things, and sure enough, they disappeared. But I don't identify with any of my diagnoses because they're in my control. So I can heal them because as long as I do what I need to do, and maybe that means moving, right? But as long as I do what I need to do, that's in my control.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Thanks for sharing. I mean, it sounds for me all like a big scale. We are living on this scale, and when we do the things nature wants us to do, and maybe not some marketer wants us to do, just nature, then we're getting better on our scale. The scale is maybe a bit individual, and you will experience other symptoms than Lars or me, but there will show up something. And if you just stop doing or continue or reconnect to nature, then you will lower your symptoms at some point. Yeah, and you are not the symptom. Yeah, very powerful. Lars, do you have some more?
Yeah, maybe you can share a bit what you would recommend for people doing on a daily basis that maybe have, for example, endometriosis, or other than that, maybe also just a hairy period, or yeah, PMS or something like that.
Yeah. Obviously, the first thing I always walk everybody through is let's change all the lights in your house, all the screens in your house, because people love to do things half-assed. Like, well, I have incandescents in my house now. Okay, great. What do you do at sunset? Well, I turn them on. Well, that's not good enough. You need some red lights or black lights at sunset. And then, okay, I did that. Okay, great. But it's still not working. Okay, what about your TV and your phone? Well, I don't watch that much TV. But does your family watch TV? Yes. Okay. Well, you got to change your TV screen too, right? You got to go all the way, and that's going to be the first thing. Is your home is your sanctuary, and your home is under your control. I don't care if you're married or whatever it is. If you are an adult, you can get a ladder, overcome your fear of ladders, because I did. And when your family's asleep or at work, you change all the lights. And all of the screens, and most of them are free. Like, there's free ways to change the tint on an iPhone, on an Android, on a Mac, on a PC, a regular computer, on a TV. Also, like, I use a free app. I have a Fire Stick and I use a free app, and my TV is set at 1700 Kelvin, so it's red. It's really red. And you could do it slowly. If you have family that's not so sure and they're watching sports, you go down a little bit every day. And before they've noticed what's happening, they're sleeping better and feeling better, and the ice is pink if they watch hockey. But that's going to be the first thing, along with watching the sunrise. Because then if you go out to watch the sunrise and you come back and marinate in your house, you're taking one step forward and 3 steps back. So, and then for the effort that's required to start watching sunrise, like, a lot of people find it difficult. And I always tell people to commit to 1 week. No matter how tired you are, you wake up at your alarm and you spend 30 minutes outside. No glasses, no contacts, no sunglasses, no glass, nothing between you and the outdoors, right? And then you come in to your curated home, and all of a sudden you're going to start seeing changes really fast. You may not have better periods really fast, but you're going to see other changes. You're going to feel better. You're going to be happier. Things are going to feel more possible, easier. Things are going to change. As far as specifically for periods, you need to get your pelvis in the sun. If you're in the northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere where the sun is bad, then you need a light panel if you can't go on vacation. And you want to, like, literally tan your pelvis.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the cold? You mentioned it in the beginning, especially if you live in Canada or in Germany.
Yes. Yes, the cold is awesome. And the cold is awesome for a reason that most people don't maybe understand. It's
I
not
heard for women it's not so good. That's always what I get as an answer.
it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Women have a higher capacity for cold than men. Why? Because we have higher leptin levels naturally, we have higher adiponectin levels naturally, and we have higher progesterone levels. All of these 3 things allow us to make heat more efficiently than a man. If any of you are into cold or you're familiar with the creator of Morosco Forge, Thomas P. Seeger, I read his book and I was shocked by how little time the men could spend in their cold plunge. Like, I my record is 30 minutes at 3 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Most men can't do that because their body fat levels are too low. They don't have as much progesterone. They don't have as much leptin as we do. Like naturally, I can do that without an issue. Now, not to say that you should go from nothing to that, right? That happened over the course of a year. But women are better at the cold than men.
I wonder, I totally agree. And I also remember the webinars and Dr. Cruz stories about it. But the experience of many women seem to be different. Actually, my experience is also when I guide people through ice baths, women usually stay longer, or they just be way more calm in it. Men are usually way louder before, but in the end, women stay longer. But how could you explain that women feel so often so cold? Is it so mindset affected, or why is it happening?
Probably because their thyroid's not functioning properly or they have other issues that they're dealing with. That just means they have to do it slowly. Like I did the cold thermogenesis protocol, like from start to finish, minus the compression t-shirt. So what that looks like is you get a bowl of cold water, right? About 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, and you dunk your face in it for as long as you can keep your face in for a total of 30 seconds every day for 6 weeks. That's how I started. I did that. Then I filled up my bathtub. My bathtub's about 15 degrees Celsius, maybe 12 in the winter. And I started with 15 minutes. And you don't move. You just sit in there and grab a book and you don't move. You don't move because when you don't move, you create this warmth layer around you. And after 3 to 5 minutes, you don't feel cold anymore. The thing is, most people don't wait long enough to feel warm. And that's I think, the biggest thing. You're like, oh, it's in and out. And I'm like, no, you gotta wait. Don't move and wait. And if you do that, you'll be rewarded because all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, I'm not cold anymore. I think that's the biggest thing. They're just not waiting for that point in which they feel warm, and maybe they're jumping in to too cold temperatures to start, or they're not doing the face dunking. I think the face dunking makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like it's similar. It's like an analog to the sun. Like nobody would go from being in Canada or Germany the whole winter and never go outside, then go to El Salvador and be in the midday sun for hours. Just do it slowly, adapt, and there's always the context, right? And this is so. I think there are some people. I see studies sometimes on Instagram or people posting studies. Yeah, it has been shown that the cold is unhealthy for certain women or whatever, and it's always missing these pieces of context and adaptation and surrounding in these studies. Yeah, so when you really do it in the context, then it's it's a part of nature, right? Especially in Canada and Germany, that you're at some point
anywhere. I like to point out to people, we know based on epidemiological research that indigenous people all around the world would have bathed on a regular basis. We know this, right? And I challenge you to go out anywhere in the world, even El Salvador, and find a natural spring that isn't freezing cold. You won't find one. There's a reason why we only drank cold water, because cold water means the water is clean and doesn't have bacteria that can make us sick or whatever. So we would have always, no matter where we were, bathed in cold water, because freshwater sources that are clean are always cold anywhere around the world. That's one thing. The second thing is, actually, I forgot what you were saying. You said something that made me think of something critical that I forgot.
About the stories, they're out of context.
Oh,
often.
The studies, yes.
The studies, yeah.
If you look at the studies, most of them are, one, not done at 10 to 15 degrees Celsius or 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and none of them account for length of time. So I haven't seen a single study done where the subjects stayed in there for longer than 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. Like, it's not there. Two, I've seen this a lot with my clients who will go away from home or will find a gym with a cold plunge, and now they're plunging indoors under blue light and EMFs. Blue light and EMFs makes you freezing cold, and you can't, because you can't make water, and then those respiratory proteins, they don't make heat as well. So it's very hard to do cold under artificial light with a high EMF environment. So I think that's a key piece too.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I like all the explanation. I think that can help very, very many of our followers and listeners. I have one more question, a bit tricky maybe. So you said you had your kids before you find out about Dr. Cruz and the sun and connecting to nature. Yeah, what would you say? Because I also experienced in these lines of, okay, many people have endometriosis and then also ADHD and Hashimoto's. They also try to get pregnant, but they're failing, they're infertile, and they're trying so many therapies. What would you say or recommend to them? What would you say to the idea? Is it maybe even good to have a baby right now? Yeah.
That really depends on your hormone levels. If you can't get pregnant, there's something obviously happening with leptin. And the easiest way to tell for women is to look at a progesterone to estradiol ratio. It needs to be, for saliva, I think it's 200 to 1. For blood, I think it's 35 or 38 to 1, I think, in order for you to sustain a pregnancy. So that's one part of it. So getting pregnant isn't just about having good eggs. That's what everybody talks. Oh, your quality of your eggs. Who cares what the quality of your eggs are if you don't have enough progesterone to carry your pregnancy through the first trimester, right? You can have the best eggs in the world, but if your progesterone levels are tanked, you're going to miscarry nonstop. So that's an important thing. And unfortunately, fertility doctors, they don't test for leptin. They don't look at HS, like highly sensitive C-reactive protein. They don't look at optimal progesterone to estradiol ratios. And they don't look at luteinizing hormone peaks that you get, like when you expose your head, neck, breast, and pelvis to UV light. You get an LH surge. Like they don't look at any of those things. So that's a critical problem. And the other thing is sometimes you may have to move to get pregnant, especially if you're older. So like I had my kids, I was in my late 20s for both of them. Where I live right now with the new 5G grid, my PG2 ratio, so progesterone estradiol, is too low to sustain pregnancy. So if I want to have a kid, I need to move to El Salvador or in the middle of nowhere where there's less 5G. It's just, for me right now, that's the reality. Unless I want to take high doses of bioidentical progesterone, which carries its own risk.
Yeah, that's the most common thing, especially in Germany. I think all people go on whatever hormonal therapies to somehow make it happen, and they have like year-long journeys. And I see it more and more also that they show these journeys on Instagram, and there are so many comments on it. It's like a huge community of people who trying to get there and trying everything, maybe not everything, but everything the medical world is offering.
I don't know about Germany, but here they don't offer bioidentical progesterone for pregnancy. They don't. They'll give you IVF drugs, so like synthetic hormones, to, again, increase the chance of the ovary and sperm joining. And they don't do anything for sustaining that pregnancy. It's not standard of practice, standard of care, I should say. I don't know about Germany, but here it is not. And in the US too, it's not standard of care.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it is. Yeah, I think it's also the IVF treatment. Yeah,
IVF.
Lars, do you have more?
I think we could speak, I don't know, for many hours more, but maybe we can make a cut. Or what do you think, Bernard? Do you have any more questions?
No, I think the last thing you said, Emanuela, is very, yeah. I mean, we are people want to have kids at some point. That's very natural and that's beautiful, and we also want to have healthy kids, and health and all what we teach our kids starts with ourselves. And I mean, you had the idea of making your kid healthy, and you also got more healthy. And I think when we're getting there to this idea, okay, when we're not when we can't get pregnant, or then there is something to change about our health. I mean, that is pretty sure not planned by nature that we can't get kids.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, if we say, yeah, ADHD, so there's always this explanation, right? ADHD, that was the people back then in the Stone Age that went for hunt, or there's always an explanation. But I don't see the reason why nature gave us infertility. So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So
definitely
there
not.
must,
Even ADHD. ADHD
yeah,
is
I
one of the
know.
easiest
Yeah.
things to fix. This is a blue light problem.
Yep. I hope that many people hear this now, and think about it. We had like special episodes about it. Even with Jack, we talked about ADHD. Yeah, at some point, more people will see it. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have anything more you want to share about this topic, or in general about your journey, or?
Um, I'll say something as far as proof goes. Everybody wants to prove this and like prove it, prove it. And it's easy. Okay. The thing is that when you're looking at medical research, you have to understand and search using medical terms. So if you search like, does circadian rhythm cause infertility? You're gonna get Google pumped information telling you no. But if you search on circadian molecules, so PER, BMAL1, clock, put any of those in a search bar and then put and infertility. The amount of research that's going to pop out is it's just all going to be
Crazy.
there. Same
Yeah.
with endometriosis, right? You put PER, clock, BMAL1, and endometriosis, and all of a sudden, all the research appears. So any
Wow.
disease you want, just put one of those three things in there and
Mhm.
put the name of the disease, and lo and behold, you'll find your proof.
Yeah, it's so close. The solution is so close. It's out there. Just get outside, or type it in if you need it before. Yeah, fascinating. Can you please tell our listeners where they can find you? That's also very important, and how they can work with you.
Sure. I'm at Circana Health, so CIRQANA Health on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, I have a new podcast coming up, so if you follow me, you'll see that come up. And I work with clients primarily who have bad periods or endometriosis. I run a group program called Control Your Period, where I take them basically step by step on how to do all the changes you need to do. And I have tricks um, on temporarily using things like herbs and supplements at the very beginning to just be able to function. Because the thing with endometriosis and really heavy periods is sometimes you can't even get out of bed. So
Mhm.
you need to feel slightly better to start implementing the sunrise and the light and all of these things. So that's primarily what I do and where you can find me. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing, Emanuela, and yeah, thank you for your work and for everything you shared today in this podcast episode. It was very insightful and very interesting to listen to your story and to listen to all your thoughts around this topic and your deep knowledge. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I will emphasize that.
Thank you for
So,
having me. I have a train here.
no problemo. Yeah, I agree. What Lars just said, it's like, and also the advices you gave, and what to look for. I think that is super helpful. So yeah, thanks again also from my side. And then yeah, that's it for today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.